Hey guys, what is happening? Niad here with Film Comics Explained, and I am excited to re-explore one of John Carpenter's classics with you. We are going to look at The Thing. Man, I love this movie, and the eerie soundtrack by Ennio Morricone, one of my favorite film composers of all time, and the legend responsible for scoring most of Sergio Leone's spaghetti westerns like The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. The Thing was written by Bill Lancaster, directed by John Carpenter, and released in 1982. Starring Kurt Russell, the film's title refers to its primary antagonist, a parasitic extraterrestrial life form that assimilates other organisms and in turn imitates them. The Thing infiltrates an Arctic research station, taking the appearance of the researchers it absorbs. This, along with the isolated and harsh surroundings, fine acting, and tense soundtrack make for an incredible set piece of paranoia and fear. Written by Chuck Farrar, inked, penciled, and colored by John Higgins, the graphic novel The Thing from Another World is the first of the comic series published by Dark Horse Comics. The story acted as a continuation of the 1982 film. Look, it isn't a perfect sequel, but I really hope you guys can enjoy the continuation of the story as we get to see the fate of MacReady. We pick up in the present time. We are in Antarctica and can see two people walking through the howling winds. We are told that the ragged peaks of the Eternity Mountains lift their backs into the emptiness, cut only by wind. They struggle to remember a gentler place, where the wind could not kill you. They struggle until the thought, along with their dreams and time itself, are swallowed by the howling maw of the Antarctic night. It is explained that people will tell you the wind here will make you insane, that it will strip you of those things that make you human, like hope, reason, and compassion. We see one of the men lay the other on the ground. He tells us that the wind is closing over his senses, making it difficult for him to tell what is real and what is not real. At that moment, we see a bright yellow light appear in front of them. One of them raises his hands to shield his eyes, and we can see his face is covered in blood. The two are fortunate enough to walk into a Japanese vessel that had run aground. One of the men yells out that he is alive and calls for them to get the doctor. We can see that MacReady is now in the medical room, where a doctor tells us his heartbeat is regular and strong. She tells the other physician behind her that there doesn't seem to be any serious damage from frostbite, and says it is amazing he is even alive. We can see her load something into a syringe, and also see MacReady's hands tighten. He grabs the doctor's hands and asks her where he is. She tells him he is in the infirmary of the Misaki Maru, a Japanese whaling vessel. He asks her how he got there, and she tells him that his friend brought him here. He gets up immediately and asks where Childs is. The reason for this is that at the end of the movie, The Thing, MacReady and Childs were the last two survivors, unsure whether the other was infected. She tells him that Childs has gone to the research station to get the others. MacReady tells her that there are no others and that they are all dead. As he heads for the door, he is held back by the other physician while she injects him with a sedative. The doctor asks the main physician if he will be alright, and she tells him that the panic attacks are not unusual following severe cases of exposure. They restrain MacReady to the bed, and she tells us that he must not be allowed to harm himself. They close the door, and she goes on to say that after what he has been through, what he needs is silence and rest. She tells the other doctor that they can have a talk with him once he wakes. MacReady wakes up a few hours later and struggles with his restraints. He leans forward and spots the medical equipment to his right. He reaches over with his fingers and flips the tray over accidentally. He then carefully grabs the scalpel and cuts himself loose. He tells us that he has to think. He asks why Childs would have brought him here and not left him to die back at the research station if he were infected. He's confused as to what his motivations are. In that instant, he realizes that it is possible he could be infected, and we see him cut his finger. He tells us that if he is infected, he will be able to see it in his blood. Each cell of the contaminated organism has its own survival instinct. Even the blood of an infected being will react like the whole animal is threatened. He pours his blood into a petri dish and heats up the scalpel. After a minute, he then pokes it into the blood to discover that he is not infected. Not yet, anyway. MacReady tells us that he knows who the good guys are, and now it is time to find the bad guys. He's looking for a way off the ship, like a raft, as he stumbles onto a helicopter. Now, he is a helicopter pilot and can't believe his luck. Although he has flown this type of chopper before, he informs us that it was a long time ago, and he hopes he can remember the pre-flight. He starts the helicopter up, which gets the attention of the crew. He lifts off and we can see them trying to wave him down, as he tells us that he is looking for a way to find out where the hell he is. Once he finds his bearings, he discovers tracks heading east, which he assumes must have belonged to Childs. The station was due north, which has MacReady confused as to where he was going. He formulates a plan to pick up the tracks on the other side of the headland, just as he starts to get an emergency warning that he is low on fuel. He hopes it can give him at least 10 more miles, enough distance to get him back to the coast, maybe even to Palmer Station. He tells us that he has to maintain altitude, and says that if he can make it past the fields, he can auto-rotate home if he has to, just as the chopper begins to run out of steam. We hear it chug a few times, before he begins to plummet into the ice below. We can see that he was able to crash land the chopper safely. Once down, he calls for Childs, before heading for the thermite charges. He finds the flamethrower and tells us that Halls wasn't infected when he had left him. We then see him pouring gasoline over the deformed corpse. He then pours gas over a few more bodies and explains that Doc Fuchs had said there is still cellular activity in the bodies, even after they've been frozen, and that one cell of living material is enough to infect an organism. He sets the bodies alight and tells us that he has to find and burn them all. We then see him venturing into the cave, as he tells us it's time to deal with the head bastard. We can see the grotesque remains of the thing. He asks if the son of a bitch had gone to sleep on him, before saying that Frozen isn't dead when it comes to that thing. He cracks an oil barrel and allows it to leak all over the cave. He tells the thing that he has something for it, and throws the thermite behind him as he runs out of the cave. We see the whole thing blow up, and notice that MacReady was lucky to make it out in time. He stands and watches the falling debris, before noticing an infected body behind him. He goes to burn it, but realizes he is now out of fuel. He grabs a gas canister and starts to pour it over the creature, and he's about to light up a flare and throw it on the body, as we see a sniper aimed at his head. The sniper gets a message asking what his status was, and the shooter replies by telling the rest of the crew to bring it in, as he has the target in sight. MacReady is surprised to see the soldiers parachuting down around him, with their guns aimed at him. He drops the flare, and one of them approaches him and says that he will cut him in half if he even blinks. They search him to find that he is clean. He asks them who they were, and the captain tells them that they are a Navy SEAL team, before saying the real question was, "Who are you?" He tells them that his name was MacReady and that he was the helo pilot detailed to the station. He asks if Palmer Station had sent them down here to kill this sucker, and one of the soldiers asks what the hell he is talking about. The captain tells MacReady that Southcom had lost communication with this place 3 days ago, and that the McMurdo reported that the camp was on fire, asking the Navy SEALs to find out why. One of the soldiers calls the captain over, telling him that they have recovered 5 dead bodies, and that they have been torched. MacReady tells them that it was due to contamination. He explains that they weren't human and had been duplicated by that thing in the generator shed. He goes on to tell them that one of them, Childs, had got away and that they needed to help him find and kill him. They have no idea what he is talking about. He tells them to check the Norwegian camp and explains that they had found an alien spacecraft, and whatever had got out of the ship took over their camp before destroying this one. The captain asks who the hell killed these men, and MacReady admits it was him. We see them cuff him. I mean, if you were in their shoes, you would do the exact same thing. As far as they're concerned, it would appear as though this man had gone nuts and murdered his colleagues. The captain informs the group that they are going to extract him along with the bodies. One of the SEALs approaches the scorched corpse and touches it. MacReady runs up to him and yells, "Don't touch that," as he kicks him away from the body. He is then hit in the back of the head and knocked out by the commander, who calls him a crazy bastard. And that is the end of Volume 1 to The Thing from Another World. I hope you guys have had fun. I'm such a huge The Thing fan, and didn't mind the prequel, which was set just before the events of John Carpenter's classic. I'm really curious to hear what you guys think, so please leave your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to like and to subscribe to stay up to date on all my content. I'm Nihat with Film Comics Explained. Thanks for stopping by.